All right, of course, when in doubt, the Donald tends to retreat to a tactic that has worked incredibly well throughout his campaign. After cycling through Jeb Bush over the weekend, accusing Bush of running home to mommy and daddy because his campaign is struggling, well, the Donald is now taking aim at what could be his toughest competition. Dr. Ben Carson. Carson is beating Trump in 2 recent Iowa polls, and Trump isn't below questioning the doctor's religion.
I'm Presbyterian. Boy, that's down the middle of the road, folks, in all fairness. I mean, Seventh-day Adventist, I don't know about. I just don't know about.
Trump also hit him again for his lack of energy.
Actually, I think Ben Carson is lower energy than Jeb, if you want to know the truth.
All right, will Trump's strategies succeed again? Because it's been working. Is he going to be able to reverse the Iowa polls by going on the attack? Here with me, former Bush campaign advisor Mark Serrano and liberal radio talk show host Leslie Marshall. Good to have both you guys here. Mark, what do you think? Does this tactic work? Can you go on the attack and turn the conversation on its head so you don't need to necessarily provide lots of policy details?
Well, yeah. So first of all, you know, if you take a look at Jeb Bush has released all sorts of policy plans, and where is he in the polls? Rick Santorum has released a lot of policy plans. Who knows anything about them? So this is not hurting Trump at all. I think Trump represents a theme. He represents an approach, a no BS approach, frankly. No, you know, not being politically correct. That appeals to voters a lot more than details. And frankly, if you take a look at his tax plan, there are a lot of details there, and it received a lot of praise from very, very credible third-party sources.
I got to point that out that, you know, you are right in that sense that I've been frustrated because we don't actually have tax plans from all the candidates that are on stage right now. And he has been one of the few that has come forward with one. I mean, we're still waiting on a tax plan from Hillary Clinton. She hasn't told us, other than wanting to tax the rich and as much as she possibly can. We don't really know specifics as to what brackets she wants to put forward. So in that sense, yes, he has provided something. But I wonder, Leslie, does he know to a certain extent that Americans, you know, they don't necessarily want to get bogged down in all the intricacies of trade deals and tax policies. It's so much more fun to watch him pick on Marco Rubio for, you know, sweating as much as he does, which was one of the comments Trump made there in Florida. And he said, gee, you know, the guy needs a lot of water, referring, of course, to that water incident in the State of the Union where Marco Rubio went and grabbed a sip and said that, you know, that he needs a lot of water. He sweats so much. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Americans say, yeah, he's right. He's talking my language. I can hang out with him.
I don't know if it's all Americans or voters, but certainly Trump supporters. And that with his rhetoric and his sound bites, which definitely work best, the fiction, if you will, and the fun over the facts with his audience. But if they turn into voters and turn out to vote for him in Iowa, it would seem whenever the cameras are rolling and Trump attacks somebody, whether it is a Mexican, a Muslim, a Democrat, Hillary, Ben Carson, he definitely gets attention and gets a bump in the polls, and that's what he's doing because he knows it's worked for him. I don't know how long that'll play out in the future. The serious voters are going to need some serious specifics regarding policy from all candidates, him included. But right now, I think it might get him a further advantage over Ben Carson, and he's obviously a bit worried, and that's why he's attacking that right now.
Well, you know, you mentioned that he might be worried. I think he might be a little bit right. I don't know if worried is the right word. Perhaps annoyed could be it, because this is a guy who obviously wants to be number one at everything. And look, I think that people have some admiration for that because they want a president who is a winner and a success story. But here he is, guys, talking about the Iowa Trump polls and trying to shrug them off.
I don't believe I did fall behind. It was one poll and a second poll. It was small polls. And I was in Iowa 3 days ago. We had a town hall that was unbelievable. It was packed. Thousands of people standing outside.
One poll's the Des Moines Register. Another's Quinnipiac, which you've said is a good poll.
Well, the Des Moines Register is a terrible paper as far as I'm concerned. But no, it really is. It's not a respected paper. Very liberal paper, by the way. I believe, and I've been winning in Iowa. And by the way, I have other polls in Iowa that say I am winning, just so you understand. This was 2 small polls.
You know, one of the things you got to appreciate about the guy is it's always somebody else's fault, right? I have a 3-year-old, by the way, like that. It's always somebody else's fault. If he bumps into the wall shouldn't have been there. But, you know, I think that it's somewhat telling. Every single time he does stumble in some way, it's not his fault. You know, at what point does he need Mark to start taking ownership for some of the negative stuff out there? Or would you say Americans kind of like it? Because, again, they want a guy who wants to win, and he's like the coach who's a big believer in the country and says, I'm going to fix stuff. And they like that. I mean, how do those two positions play out in your view?
This is style over substance, Trish. American voters, as we've seen for months now, with Trump atop of the polls for many months, they are so sick and tired of the Beltway establishment political class. They want somebody who's going to fight for their interests. They're so much more focused on someone who's going to show fight as opposed to show details. And what Trump's been very successful at doing is not being allowed to be fixed into a box, painted into a box. And frankly, the mainstream news media, the establishment, the political class, they all have these expectations. You check off these boxes about polling. You check off these boxes about whether the media accepts you or not, whether you have enough detail. And Trump is obliterating those conventions, those preconceived notions.
He
right?
sure
and
is.
he's
I mean,
winning.
I thought he would really have a tough time recovering from what he said about John McCain. You know, and it just didn't matter.
That was months ago now.
Exactly. Stick with me, guys. We got a lot to cover here. While Trump goes on the attack, Hillary Clinton plays victim. Mrs. Clinton now complaining that she's being unfairly treated because she's a woman. You see, she doesn't like that Bernie Sanders is now treating her like a competitor. He's calling her out, as a political opponent should, for all her flip-flops.
This was not a complicated issue. Is not now, nor has it ever been, the gold standard of trade agreements. I came to that fork in the road, and I took the right road, even though it was not popular at that time. In 1996, I faced another fork in the road, a very, very difficult political situation. It was called the Defense of Marriage Act.
Well, you know, he's also calling her out for her style, alluding to her voice. Her response on this one, she's a woman.
Sometimes when a woman speaks out, some people think it's shouting.
And now her campaign director says Bernie's not playing nice.
I think Bernie Sanders seemed to have a course correction in the JJ dinner, from one in which he said he wasn't going to go negative to obviously focusing his fire on her.
But isn't all fair in love and war and politics? Why is Hillary trying to turn the conversation around, blaming Bernie? Our own Ed Henry is here. And Ed, it seems as though there's no more playing nice there on behalf of Bernie with Hillary.
No, Trish, I was at that dinner on Saturday night in Des Moines. This is a big one because, remember, in 2007, Hillary Clinton also went in as a frontrunner, fizzled out. Barack Obama came in, gave a heck of a speech, but then also put the organizational strength behind it to actually win. That's going to be the question for Bernie Sanders. Can he actually organize people? He excited them on Saturday night. I was there, and I can tell you, he blew the doors off the room, basically. He was the one that they were chanting for. There were over 6,000 Iowa Democrats, and the majority that I heard were going, Bernie, Bernie, and they were eating up all those lines you just played when he was talking about this has never been the gold standard. Of course, he was talking about the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the fact that Hillary Clinton once called it the gold standard, now says she's against it, even though she helped negotiate that trade deal. And so he went through one after the other without ever naming her and basically said that she had flip-flopped on all these issues. Martin O'Malley, the third Democrat left in the race, called her a weather vane at one point in his remarks. So you're right. The gloves are coming off, but maybe it's about time. This has been a fairly easy race for Hillary Clinton against her opponents. It's been her self-inflicted wounds that got her in trouble, whether it's the email issue or other matters, which, by the way, have not gone away. There's still an FBI investigation. So I think the bottom line is she still did a good job on Saturday night. I was there at the speech, all the speeches, and she's in a commanding position. Is still very likely to get the nomination. But there are these other issues lurking out there, whether it's the FBI investigation on email or Bernie Sanders. Is he for real or not? He's certainly talking a good game. He's getting tougher. We'll see if he can deliver with votes when they actually start voting.
Thank you so much, Ed. This is part of the primary process, everyone. We need to vet all of these candidates. They need a chance to go up against each other, attack each other to a certain extent with, hopefully for the sake of the party, not completely undoing each other, but it is part of the political process. And you know what? She's an adult. She's been around politics for a while. She should expect it. And Henry, thank you so much. I'm bringing back Mark Serrano and Leslie Marshall. You heard John Podesta there complaining to the Sunday shows, her campaign manager. There's, you know, Bernie Sanders is suddenly going after her. Mark, isn't this exactly what he's supposed to do?
Well, Bernie blew it. I mean, you know, Bernie's proving that he blew it in the debate. You know, he gave her a pass on the email controversy. You know, didn't challenge her really much at all.
Frankly, he was her champion. He was the knight in shining armor in that debate.
Yeah, Clinton just showed up for that debate. She didn't have to really do much, and none of those guys took her on. So now Bernie clearly has remorse over his performance in that debate. And you're right, he's doing what he has to do, which is challenging her on every single issue. And look, he's the guy who's packing the rallies and the halls, much like Barack Obama did in 2008, as Ed had said. So I think very much so we're going to see a very different Bernie Sanders from this day on. He's not going to make that mistake again.
This could get very interesting. Leslie, again, it goes back to this is part of the process. She should expect it. Why is she, you know, trying to turn it on its head and say, look, you know, my voice is the way it is because I'm a woman?
Well, first of all, I would agree regarding the debate that Bernie Sanders said, you know, I can't continue this kumbaya love fest. I respect her, I like her, but I am running against her. And maybe I really want this more than I thought I did. Maybe it's within reach, at least winning in the state of Iowa and certainly in New Hampshire. But as a woman, regarding that voice, and especially because I use my voice on radio as well as television, I have had many a male management figure tell me that when a woman gets angry, she gets shrill. And when a woman's very aggressive, she's
okay,
viewed
so you're
as
going to play this card too. I see where this is going.
I know I do believe when it comes to her voice or her style, it is a gender issue.
I see where this is going.
When it comes to him attacking her on issues, that's not about gender.
Is this going to work for her, Mark? Is she going to be able to rally women around her that feel like she's being unfairly attacked because she's female?
So this is the great compromise, the great conflict of feminism and progressivism, right? We want everybody to be equal, but we want some special exceptions, right? Hillary Clinton wants to be, she said in the debate, she should be elected because she's a woman, but now she has to complain because she's being mistreated as a woman. It's a great conflict. It's absurd. You know, as if females don't have preconceived notions about males, right?
That's right.
Some males have preconceived notions, okay? Comes out, that's what happens in social settings or in work settings. But that doesn't mean that people have got it in for her because she's a woman. It's ridiculous to say that when you're running because you want to be a woman. And frankly, the news media, they're the ones who want to see her as the first woman president. So it's not going to work with voters. Certainly not independent voters once we get to a general election. I think that's going to turn around.
I question whether it works with voters. I mean, Leslie, I think there's a group of younger women that feel less like they need to elect someone just because she's a woman. I think that there is a generation of women that fought hard to be in the workforce and were up against a lot of obstacles, and as such, they feel some simpatico with her, and they feel like, okay, well, we need, in my lifetime, I want to see a woman president. I don't know if that exists so much among younger women, but the older women do feel as though the female card is exactly what they want. That's why they're voting for her, so she can say, I want to be the first woman president of the United States, and that's going to really resonate with some voters.
It is, and quite frankly, if you look at the numbers and the people that she lost to Bernie Sanders, she lost women. And she needs to get some of those women back. So this might be a bit more calculated, quite frankly, than we think. And in addition to that, you're absolutely right with regard to age and demographic. You also have to remember that although there are women out there who want to vote for someone, whether it's her based on gender, certainly want a woman as president, there are women who don't feel comfortable with a woman as president either. And she might be trying to get that sympathy. And I think she's trying to pull some of those female numbers back that she's lost to